Satin on her throat, lies in the wings. Opera houses don't sleep. They hold a note and make the night sing around it. When the last bus pulls away and the benefactors stop being interesting, the building changes language. Day speaks and shoe squeaks on marble, schedules stapled to cork boards, rehearsal pianos trying to be kind. Night speaks in fly loft breath and dimmer hum, in ghost light and cooling metal, in stage marks that glow only if you kneel and let your eyes be honest. If you've never stood alone in the prompt corner at 2 in the morning and felt a set breathe like an animal waiting to be named, you don't know how a city fits into a room with a velvet ceiling. My name is Lucas, production stage manager at the Armitage Opera. On my belt, a Leatherman that knows the difference between tight and cruel, a Sharpie that lives to be believed, a coil of spiked tape like a patient snake, and the headset that calls me by my better self. I know the sound a rope makes when a flyman is lying. I can feel in the stage boards when a ballet company is trying to forget their injuries. I can tell by the smell in the wings which soprano smuggled oranges, and which tenor mistook cologne for technique. Ivy, my wife, then curated donors like they were a chorus waiting to learn harmony. Publicist by title, hypnotist by practice, she wore a band of satin tied on the inside of her wrist for luck, a secret ribbon that my mouth could follow if I had clearance. On Wednesdays, when our orbits admitted it, she'd badge through the stage door and slip into our dark the way a diver slides under a familiar lake. She'd sit on the edge of the stage management console, one heel hooked on a road case, two fingers finding my belt on the pretext of smoothing a thread. I'd put my mouth in the notch below her collarbone, the little country where a voice waits before choosing a vowel, and breathe until her shoulders changed professions. We were careful. Our cameras forget nothing. A ghost light tells the truth more politely than people. The first sign didn't shout. It cleared its throat. The automation log recorded the main curtain safety chain lifted and replaced between cues, a thing that doesn't happen unless human hands want to be present tense. A rehearsal piano downstage left woke for 8 minutes with no rehearsal scheduled. The ghost light shifted a half step on the deck, as if someone had nudged it with a shin while choosing a corner to believe in. At the edge of the proscenium, on the mat of a sneeze guard someone forgot to wipe after a reception, a lipstick ring hovered. A red so clean it read as peppermint in the black light, a confidence Ivy didn't wear for me. 2 nights later, the same minute pressed fingers into my neck. A rigging sensor alerted to a brief load on line set 9, just enough to lean your back and think your thoughts. The hallway camera outside the star dressing rooms blinked once and regained focus like an eye too close to a secret. On the stage left wing runner, a single sequin sat in the nap of the carpet like a star someone dropped and let the dark adopt. Sequins do not appear in our uniform policy. Sequins arrive on shoulder that have mistaken a building for a mirror. I am not a cop. I am the keeper of light cues and promises, but I believe in traces. In the prop shop, we keep a small bottle of UV developer for tour groups, the one we use to show kids that their hands will sing even when they think they're quiet. That night, I dusted a crescent under the handle of the star corridor, kissed a soft line along the base of the thermostat in Green Room A where an eager thumb might settle, and drew a whisper on the guard of the favorite handheld mic we keep for clandestine speeches. I tied a single hair of monofilament across the loading door at shin height. Nothing cruel, only a truth that would fall onto the deck and curl like a dead insect when disturbed. Then I looked at my reflection in the dark glass of the stage manager's monitor, the one that shows the house when the house is pretending to be a sea. And I smiled in the way that means I have already decided which version of myself will not be invited back. Ivy came later, mouth amber, dress choosing its own folds. She sipped the terrible coffee our machine calls virtuous, made that face that forgives in advance for a different reason, and set her palm on my sternum as if there were a dimmer there, and she wanted to see what it would do. "You're building flirts," she said, not looking at me, but at the arch of the proscenium that treats even emptiness as an audience. "It dreams," I said. "I make lists until it agrees to sleep." My hand found the side of her throat in greeting, not claim. She softened the way a plan does when it stops posing and starts happening. "We should have it," she said. "The conversation," I answered, because I name my beasts before I feed them. "Open," she said. "Not messy, not cruel. Nobody from your crew, nobody who signs my checks. We say it before, not after. Protection isn't negotiable. We come first. Our bed is a border. These wings," her eyes grazed the black that was listening, "are a sanctuary even if we never say the word." I made the stupid joke about being sacristan to a ghost light, and her mouth erased it in the right tense. We wrote rules with skin instead of ink and pretended we'd invented mercy. Morning returned my monofilament like a small truth on the deck. The UV crescents grinned under the door handle, the thermostat, the mic guard, exactly where a human's hope would be if hope had a map. Beneath a costume rack rolled too close to the corner, I found an earbud tip sleeping in dust. Ivy disciplines her hair with matte pins that tell no story. This little clear thing wanted to be a secret and failed. His name arrived with a queue of sponsors and a tone of inevitability. Raphael Laurent, the baritone whose vowels make donors rethink their marriages, scheduled a late-night interview on our stage. Behind-the-curtain intimacy, the press release said, which is a phrase you have to wash your hands after reading. He had the handshake of a man who mistakes schedules for exceptions and permission for greeting. He wore a cologne that could have sold me a city I already lived in. "The boards feel like they remember knees," he said, bold with the stage under his feet. His eyes measured the dark like a map he assumed had been drawn for him. At home, the kettle did its song. Ivy pressed her fingers flat on the table like she was smoothing a plot. "I used the word," she said. She didn't shrink. "I wasn't supposed to let that into your walls. I won't again. Not here." "What time?" I asked. The man who lives in Q stacks trying to excuse himself with numbers. "It's not the hour that washes it," she said, and I didn't argue with the accuracy, only the ache. We lived a month like citizens of a careful border. Ivy told me before. I put the bottle of UV developer back with the things that know too much. Raphael drifted in our nights with a camera crew that called him by a first name like a habit, and the building breathed through it as if through gauze. Our pact felt plausible. The stage remembered its job. It made beautiful liars look like truth and asked nothing in return but craft. Thursday, the week's self-portrait returned on cue. The safety chain again lifted and settled. The rehearsal piano again woke without instruction. In the staff kitchen, a champagne flute dried with a peppermint ring neat as a signature. On the stair cam, a silhouette paused to retie a shoe with the choreography of a man who likes being looked at. I did not run backstage to write a scene. I called the light cues and the scene changes and the automation marks. I let my anger stand in the wings, hands clasped behind its back like any other crew member waiting for their cue. We separated on purpose, the way people do who have rehearsed kindness and would prefer not to improvise cruelty. Ivy took a one-bedroom above a flower shop where a basil plant tries too hard in a window that gives it no favors. I kept my chipped mug, my headset, my cue book with its corners softened by hope. She took the kettle that sings like a friend. "Hate me clean," she said. "If you can't, file me under something you seldom touch." "I label well," I said, and for once the joke didn't ruin anything. Work stitched me back the way work knows how. A fog machine sulked. I coaxed it like an old dog down off a chair. A new ASM mistook silence for invisibility. I taught her that stillness is not the same thing and that the Q light doesn't love anyone who won't look it in the eye. A chorus member cried in the quick change corner because a marriage ended during a 16th rest. I stood by the rolling rack and kept the world from touching her for one whole aria. I slept in slabs. I learned to like the room the night made for me. She appeared with a pelican case, a chalk line, and a measuring tape around her neck like a choir's ribbon. Margot was a cutter in the costume shop who specialized in turning fabric into decisions. Her hair was pinned with the kind of clip that makes light into an excuse. She smelled like steam iron and clean cotton, and the end of a long patience. On her middle finger, a small pale scar curved like a comma where a razor once told a story. We met properly on the grid, heads together inside the hush above the stage where the riggers breathe. She pressed her ear to a stubborn motor housing and tapped the metal with the back of her fingernail until the hum admitted fatigue. "Respect, not force," she told the machine. It listened. I held the beam the way you hold the world when you agree to become useful. When I handed her the driver, our fingers grazed, and the electricity went where it should. Our first kiss was in wardrobe storage, between rails of finished dresses asleep under Tyvek like clouds with seams. We killed the overheads for a power test, honest alibi, and left the work light on the floor making a small sun. Margot put her palm on my sternum, the way a professional checks for heat without asking it to perform. I put my mouth under her ear, the place that turns language back into breath, and the building stayed upright while we tilted. She kept her eyes open, not a dare, a gratitude. My hand found the side of her neck, greeting, not proof. We stepped apart before the emergency light could decide to take our picture. We laughed the laughter of people who know how much weight a beam can carry and choose not to test it to failure. With Margot, precision put on tenderness like a costume that fit in the shoulders. She likes my thumb resting on the pulse inside her wrist. She likes my refusal to hurry. She'll come sit astride my lap in the tiny glass office off the fly rail, blind down, monitor dim, world going on without us. She'll draw with a fingernail on my forearm the path from seam to fit to walk, and I'll understand more about bodies than the manual ever taught. We made rules the building could bless. Not on the deck. Not in the wings. Not where a camera could remember better than we mean to. Yes, in wardrobe at midnight when the steam is a hymn. Yes, on the catwalk under the gels that make the air blush. Yes, on the roof above the stage door where the pigeons are a Greek chorus if you let them. If you came for revenge staged as ethics, I will waste your seat. I could have printed logs and highlighted peppermint rings and delivered them to a board that loves the idea of justice when the check's clear. I could have taught a baritone what doors are for. I could have made Ivy learn what the building knew. But an opera house is a sanctuary for other people's listening. The widow in row G who will spend 30 seconds more with a note because it was her husband's favorite needs the air to tell the truth, not my pride. And Margot prefers me smelling like steam and patience, not victory. Ivy and I learned to talk without turning nouns into knives. She kept the contract to stage our winter gala, because she is excellent and I am not small. Sometimes she texts a photo of the basil pretending to be an oak. I send back a still of the stage at 4:11 a.m., ghost light making a circle of honesty on a floor that forgives us. Proud of you, she wrote the night I saved a changeover by fixing a jammed caster with a screwdriver and a sentence I did not raise my voice to say. I let the words land. They had left their claws elsewhere. Raphael still visits, lens in tow, because the world pays beautiful men to narrate its credulity. We passed in the corridor by the freight elevator. He gave me the two-finger salute boys learn from movies. "These walls remember lovers," he said, trying the line on me like I was a microphone. They remember craft, I said. Lovers remember themselves. He smiled like a man who mistakes composure for permission, and let the freight door pretend to greet him. Nights went back to being honest. A dresser pinned a hem with hands that had just stopped shaking. I stood close enough to be a wall and far enough not to be a witness. A rigger lost a wrench to gravity and apologized to the deck with his eyes. The deck forgave him the way wood forgives all of us. A stand-in forgot to breathe. I cued her breath and called the next bar, and told the conductor thank you on a downbeat that felt like a truce. Sometimes I wake on the little cot in the production office at a time my watch refuses to dignify with numbers. If Margot's shin lies heavy across my thigh like a line in a score that means now, I put my hand along her throat and wait for the lift that says yes. The difference between an ending and a completion has a temperature. My palm reads it better than my mouth could claim to. Months after the developer went back to its drawer among the truths we don't need nightly, the Armitage hosted a fundraiser titled Under the Flies. I wore black because black forgives light. Ivy stood under a tamed rig, hair shorter in the way decisions sometimes are. Is she gentle? She asked without saying Margot, because we have learned to offer names like gifts, not like weapons. She's exact, I said. That is my religion's word for good, tenderness with a manual. Be kind, she said, not a benediction, an instruction. We clinked water because water keeps your hands honest, and champagne belongs to the people who can't hear the cues. Near the harp case, Raphael told a small crowd that an aria is a lie that tells the truth. They gave him attention he'd already priced. Let him have it. I had a work light to kill, a door to lock, a woman waiting on the roof to place her palm on my sternum as if I were a panel she trusted. Opera houses don't do morals. They do marks and cues and maintenance schedules, and 1,000 small rituals designed to keep strangers from breaking against each other. To the new ASM who will slip into my office at some bleak hour with eyes too bright and ask what to do with the job that isn't on the page, I will say what I say to myself when the stage wants to borrow my pride. Log it, breathe, decide. Keep the sanctuary sacred. Don't let the wings carry your grievance. Keep evidence if you must. Refuse the robe. Remember the widow in row G. She will not wait for you to forgive anyone before she stands up into a note and calls it by her husband's name. Before dawn, I take the last round like a hymn I know in my bones. I run my hand along a velvet border like I'm petting an old dog that forgives slowness. All green, I tell the radio, which is another name for the middle of my chest. The small lights give me their small, honest truths. I silence rooms in the right order. I turn the key, an entire profession folded into one faithful click, and climb to the roof. Sometimes Margot is already there, hair clip catching the first gray, smelling like steam and sleep, and something I would call mercy if I thought I had the rank. She lays her palm on my sternum like a technician checking a good machine. I put my mouth beneath her ear, where breath steals language and returns it improved. I keep the only oath I ever took without signing. Sanctuaries are built, not found. Love is a maintenance log. I won't use the wings to stage a revenge. If the logs cough again at the wrong minute, I will see them. I will choose a drawer, the one with powder or the one where patience sleeps folded like muslin. Lately I open, look close, and choose patience. It looks good on wood. It holds me upright. And when the house opens and the first shoes whisper their way to velvet seats, I go back down with satin on my tongue, Margot's hand in mine, and the quiet certainty that tonight I carried the truth at the right volume.